So ladies and gentlemen, my work together 2-3 is open. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to unpin my question asset on the very top, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag it over to the right, and I'm going to resize it just a little bit so that way I can keep it over here on the right while I have my T account so I don't have to do as much scrolling back and forth. And I know one of the nice things about working in here in room 413 is you have a bigger monitor. Have you tried to do these on a Chromebook and it's a little bit harder on a smaller screen? So that makes you appreciate my room a little bit more and hanging out with me. It's all good. So I want to see here we have account titles listed. These are all of the account titles that can be used. So yesterday in section 2-2 I talked about how you have a chart of accounts. You have balance sheet accounts and you have income statement accounts. And they're just saying these are the only accounts that this business is going to be able to use. So you can't come up and say, all right, now Jensen Cleaning Service is going to keep track of postage expense. That doesn't quite work that way. Then we have another tab here that refers to transactions. And you can see our first transaction starts March 11th. And then we look over here on the left-hand side, and we also have 2 T accounts for March 11th. What account needs to go first in every single one of them? It's not going to be an account title, but what goes first? Say it again. I thought you said it. Nope, not cash, because every transaction doesn't affect cash. The debit has to go first. So we always got to figure out which account is being debited and put that one first. So our first transaction reads, sold services and account Johannes Erickson for $125. So I'm going to flip back over to my account titles here. So we have sold services on an account to Johannes Erickson. So what is one account that we hear in there, Dominic? Yeah, so we have Johannes Erickson, and that's accounts receivable. Okay, so accounts receivable, is that an asset, a liability, or owner's equity, Dominic? It is an asset. What is the normal balance of an asset? Debit or credit? Okay, so the normal balance is a debit. So does Johannes Erickson, Dominic, owe us more money or less money? More. So are we going to debit or credit accounts receivable Johannes Erickson? We are going to debit. So we know right now, I did all of that before I started clicking on anything over here in my T accounts. So the first account that we're going to affect is going to be accounts receivable Johannes Erickson. And you just told me that we're going to debit it, and that was for $125. Okay. Tanner, you want to take a poke at the other account? Woo! Good call, good call. Yep, it is sales. So Tanner, sales is classified as what? Starts with an R. There you go. So revenue does what to owner's equity, Tanner? Goes up. What is the increase side of owner's equity? Credit. So do we have more sales or less sales with this transaction? So we are going to be crediting sales. So we'll go ahead, and our second T account is going to be sales for $125. Bing, bing, bing. First one done. Yay! Transaction 13. Receive cash from sales. Isaiah, what's an account you hear in that one? Cash. So Isaiah, do we have more cash or less cash? More cash. What type of an account is cash, Isaiah? Asset, liability, or owner's equity? You are right. We own it and it has value, Isaiah. So it is an asset, and you said it has more. So what are we going to debit or credit cash? We are going to debit it because it's an asset. Assets have a debit normal balance, and it's going up. So our first account is going to be cash, and we're going to debit it $260. Mackenzie, what's my other account for March 13th? Sales. Do you remember the classification of sales? It is under owner's equity. The exact classification of sales is going to be the R word, though. Revenue. And what does revenue do to owner's equity? I'm sorry, I'm just having a hard time hearing with the fan. Yes, it does increase. What is the increase side of owner's equity? Credit. So we are going to go ahead and credit our sales account because we have more sales. March 14th, paid cash for telephone bill. Trista, what's one that you hear? You're going to have to speak up. The fan is really loud. You can do anyone. So I hear cash too, because anytime I see a transaction right here and it says paid cash, I'm like, all right, the first account I got out of this is always cash. And that's really what I do, is I start with what stands out to me the most. So, Trista, do we have more cash or less cash? Yes, because we're paying out cash, so money is leaving our business. Cash is what type of an account? Asset, liability, or owner's equity? Assets. So assets have what for normal balance? Yes. So we can't debit it because it's not going up, so we're going to need to credit it. So I want to point out here that the account that she gave me was not the debit, but that's okay because I can go right here and go to the second T account and do that one there. I don't have to do the debit as the first one, but I have to put that one in on the top T account. So cash is going to be credited for $54. I couldn't find my number. Julian, what's the other account that you hear there? Telephone bill. Okay, so this one gets a little bit tricky, Julian. If we look here, what of this is going to deal with telephone? It is utilities, but what is this last word after utilities? That is the key thing that I need you to realize, is it says the word expense after that. And anytime you see an account title that has the word expense, you should know the classification. No. Classification. Anyone want to tell me the classification of the utilities expense? Give you the hint. I just said the word. It's an expense. Okay? That's why I'm like, you should know that one. If you see the word expense in the title, you're like, all right, classification is an expense because the word is right in there. That's an easy one. I like that one. The other thing, you know, if you have the word payable, that means you owe somebody. Definition of a liability is anything you owe. So payables have to be a liability. So utilities expense, we know is an expense. So, Julian, what do expenses do to owner's equity? Make it go up or down? What is the downside of owner's equity? What side of the accounting equation is owner's equity on, left or right? So, right side is also called credit. So, that is the increase side of owner's equity is going to be the credit. So we have to debit expenses because that's what expenses do to owner's equity. It makes it go down. So utilities expense is going to be debited. For $54. Oh, we sound really healthy in here. Lots of people coughing. The 16th. Receive cash on account from Johannes Erickson. That Johannes, she's paying us back, Morgan. So give me an account title we're going to use. Cash. Now, Morgan, do we have more cash or less cash? Classification of cash. So what are we going to do? Are we going to debit or credit cash? I would agree. Thank you. Riley, what's the other account? Receive cash on account from Johannes Erickson. Accounts receivable. Yes. So we know that we have to find the word with actually her title in there. So my question to you, as accounts receivable Johannes Erickson, is that an asset, a liability, or owner's equity? It is not owner's equity because it is not Mrs. Grassel Capital. The only one that's going to be owner's equity is going to be the one that says capital in it. So is it going to be an asset or a liability? Try again. It's an asset. Remember, the only thing that's a liability has to have the word what in it. I just said it before this transaction. Oh, that would be a really good quiz question. Liabilities have to have what word in it so you know it's a liability? Nope. Payable. If you don't see payable in it, it's not a liability. I really just said that less than 2 minutes ago. Okay? So if you see the word payable in it, that tells you it's a liability. It has to have the word capital in it in order to be owner's equity. So therefore, Riley, we've narrowed it down and we know that accounts receivable Johanny Erickson is going to be an asset, right? So my question to you is, accounts receivable Johanny Erickson, does she owe us more money or less money because of this transaction? So when she pays us $125, what's that? Less money. And the reason that I ask the questions in this order is it helps you to see how we're going to go through and choose the right one. So accounts receivable Johanny Erickson is an asset and she owes us less money. So therefore, it's an asset. We need that asset to go down. And the downside of assets is going to be a credit for $125. The last one, March 19th. Holly, we paid cash to owner for withdrawal of equity. What's one account that you hear in there? I agree, Holly. Cash is what type of an account? Okay, do we have more cash or less cash because of this transaction? Less. So cash is an asset and it's going down, so am I debiting or crediting it? Yes. So that's going to be my second T account that I'm going to use. And that's going to be for $200. Sabrina, you ready for the rest of it? Okay, so I purposely switched over to here so we can see our account title. So the owner withdrew equity from the business. So one of the things we know, if we hear the word owner, it's got to be the name of the owner, okay? So now if I look here, I have two owners' names because we're doing Jensen Cleaning Service. One is capital and one is drawing. Which one are we going to use? We are going to use drawing. Do you remember the classification that I wrote on the board behind the screen for drawing? Started with a C. It's called a contra account. Okay? Contra means we have it around just to keep track of what they take out of it. Okay? And that's a new word today, so that's why, okay, if you don't know it. So, John Jensen drawing is going to be what we use anytime the owner takes out something from the business, specifically for this cleaning business. So John Jensen drawing is a contra account. What does drawing do to owner's equity, Sabrina? Make it go up or down? What is the downside of owner's equity? That is its normal balance. And the owner has taken more and more out, so we're always going to be increasing that cap of that drawing account. So we're going to go ahead and put John Jensen drawing here, and we're going to debit it for $200. Once you go ahead and click on Save and Continue, and why don't you try that on your own?